Hey guys, I'm MeeMee and I do Allsorts. If we go back a few months to February when I got my very first Art Snacks Plus box, I also went into the shop and had a look at in the previous boxes that you can still get, and I found this particular one which I got super excited about, and this is it. And so this box is actually from last year, back in March, so this is the March 2020 box. So it is a little bit outdated, and is ageless and never outdated, so been sat in my corner for the best part of about 3 months. If you don't know, Art Snacks is an art subscription box in the US. I'm not sponsored, not affiliated, but I have to admit that I absolutely love these boxes. So without further ado, I can't remember what's in here, I just know I love the theme. Yeah, and let's see what we get inside. So in March 2020 we get, ta-da! So we have our bubble mailer with our supplies in. So first off we have our destruction list, which I'm not going to take a look at because I don't want to spoil anything. This is our normal art snack supplies, so I'm going to put them aside and open them last, and we'll get to the rest of them. So first off we have a Princeton paintbrush. It's a size 8, so it's quite big. It's a long round, which I think that's what it is because the bristles are actually a lot longer than what I'm normally used to. And it's a velvet touch, and I have to say that this does actually have that velvety touch to it. So we've got our really nice paintbrush. Up next we have an amazing brand, Caran d'Ache. This is a museum aquarelle, and it's a water soluble pencil, and it's in permanent blue. So when that's out of the way, let's see what we get in the normal one. Alright, and first off we have another paintbrush, this time in some flat round-ended one from Royal and Langnickel, and it's a Menta. I don't know if that's an actual thing, but it's a size 10. These brushes are actually quite fun to work with. You get some really interesting textures out of it, and also as well it's a bit flat and angled at that end. Not entirely sure what it's for, but I'm sure I'll be able to find out. Right, up next we have a graphic brush liner. It's pigment ink, it's in Japan, and it's black. It's water-based and light, fast and waterproof. I actually quite like brush liners because you can get into all kinds of like really cool line widths, and of course that's what it looks like. It's a brush nib. Up next we have a tube. It's by Rembrandt. It's a watercolour, and it says graphite. Ooh, now I wonder if this is something similar to what I used before. I've been saying, I can't remember the brand exactly, but I did do a video on it, and I got 3 tubes of like graphite paint, and oh, it was so fun to work with. It was so unusual, and it actually works than graphite. You know, and once it's dry you could actually erase it. So I'm looking forward to trying that out. Last but not least we have some pencils by Bronzeal. I think that's how you pronounce it. It says that the 4 coloured pencils, all very dark shades, manufactured from quality pigments and excellent colour transfer. Well, I hope so, and you know, and that's why we have coloured pencils. I mean, isn't that what coloured pencils are for? You know, excellent colour transfer. But these shades kind of look a little bit too close together, you know, a little bit samey. You might never know, it might look a bit different on paper. And right in the end we have our Art Snacks sticker, which is super colourful and very triangular, and I really do love that. I love geometric shapes. And our paper is from Grumbacher, and it's watercolour paper. Now, I've never used Grumbacher before, but I've heard that they're quite good. So we can get 12 sheets. It's £140, 300 GSM in 7 by 10 inches, and optimum sizing for watercolour. And it's also acid free. Ooh, that is a very thick boy. Now, I really do love my watercolour papers. So much so, I think I have at least 7 to 12 of them. Last year, especially when the scroll boxes, they went crazy with everything watercolour, and I think half the year was just watercolours alone, which for me I've got no complaints about because I love watercolours. So you can see why I wanted a really outdated box. Alright, so now we've had to look into everything, I'm going to go grab some water and we'll do some experimenting. I've just noticed as well when I was taking a sheet of paper around, it's really smooth on the other side, which for me is actually really unusual because normally the watercolour paper that I get and they're like textured on both sides. And anyway, first off I'm going to try the graphic pen. And obviously you can see because I'm left-handed, that is really nice, I do like that. I'm going to let them dry and we will see how waterproof this actually is. And next up I'm going to try these bronzeals. I don't think that these are actually water-based, they'll be normal coloured pencils, but still I'm curious. And unfortunately they don't have any colour names on them either, and just says expression colour number, whatever number it is. Okay, so they're all the coloured pencils. Now I don't know what the core is. I don't know whether it's wax based or oil based. Maybe oil, the way how it went down on the paper. It did have like the slick feeling. So we'll get on with the Caran d'Ache. So give it a test. Oh wow, wow. Okay, that is not one you'd expect. Goes down dark and comes out fighting. That is super cool. I love that. And then last but not least, the Rembrandt. I think it needs a bit of a shake up, and that is coming out. Yeah, you can't really see because the light is really shining down on it. And that's what that looks like, and it's quite shiny. I'm going to wait for that to dry and use an eraser on top of it. And it's also nice to see that you can water it down so you can get different variations. Right, and so this is what I've got to work with. It's an awful lot of like blues and purples, so I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do until things start drying, and so I can experiment further to see what will work with what. So like I said, I'm going to wait for things to dry and see what my options are later. Well, for you it would have only been a couple of seconds, but for me it's been quite a few weeks since I last touched this. Since then this wasn't exactly a priority because in the back box I had other subscription boxes get through, and then once they weren't done I fell ill, but I'm fine now and I can finally get back to this. So I have actually had quite a while to think about things, and looking at all of the colours I decided that I wanted to go with like a bioluminescent jellyfish. So what I've done, you probably can't see in because I've lightened up quite a bit and I've gone like a basic shape of a jellyfish. So that's what I'm going to do. And I did actually do quite a bit of experimenting with how all of these supplies interacted with each other, and I was actually quite pleasantly surprised, especially since even though the black did actually bleed in quite a bit, I was pleasantly surprised that the graphite actually worked on top of it, and so it's worth trying these things out. And so what I'm doing here is I'm going in with the blue first, and like the tendrils and things they are. The good thing about having like go wash down first is that I'm going to be using like a lot of blues with it as well, so it'll blend in a lot nicer. And the graininess of it is actually giving it some good texture as well, so I think then it's not going to be like a really flat image. Ew, and tell you what, even though that I'm never usually a fan of like the graininess of a pencil on like textured paper like this, you know, especially when it comes to watercolour pencils, you know, I like to have a smooth transition, but in some circumstances like this, it's actually helping an awful lot and giving that extra bit of texture, especially into the tendrils or whatever you call them, you know, in some parts like around here where it's darker, you know, it just gives that extra bit of texture, and you know, so it's not flat. I kind of got a bit lost around this area, and as I said, I haven't really been doing this for a couple of weeks doing other things, and so I kind of forgot where some of the free bits were, but I'll figure it out. I'll tell you one thing, this paintbrush really does hold an extreme amount of water, which is something that I'm thinking is like an absolute must when it comes to watercolour brushes. And so what I'm doing here is that I'm just very lightly applying the coloured pencils, you know, just to get into a sense of where things are, and you know, in relation to the rest of the picture, because it's going to be a little bit dark on the tendrils. So you know, going back and forth and this just to refine is going to be the best way about it, instead of just going in like really dark. Because the reference image and like the head or whatever you call it is like the lightest part and like more pastel, whereas the tendrils and like darker. Now for the tendrils, I'm not going to like really cover it in the coloured pencils, because I don't want to lose all of the watercolour pencils that I did, and it's just going to be a little bit subtle in like the darks and the shadows. So what I've got planned is that I'm going to do the entire background black. I know it's not exactly that ideal, I think it's going to push the image forward quite a bit. I will go back and refine things. This is going to be really weird and very nerve-wracking. I'm not going for like a straight edge. This feels like a huge mistake when you just don't know until you've actually finished. And I think that's like the fun part as well, seeing it all come together, and it's just fun, blocking in such large areas. Well, the camera's shut off, so I don't know how much that you missed, but I tried to do it as quickly as I could. But this just looks so strange now. It just looks as though I've done the jellyfish on a different sheet of paper and cut it out and stuck on a black background. It just looks so weird. So now I'm just going to go in and blend it in a little bit better. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the self-instant black bar, I've watered it down a little bit just to try and accentuate some of the darker colours. Because I only had like a really dark blue, and just want that little bit more and just to really punch in the shadows. So what I'm doing now is I'm just taking some of that into graphite paint and just bringing it into the triangles and just adding a little bit of sparkle. Right, now for the fun stuff, I'm doing like these spindly things. Well, if you can't tell by now, I don't know the anatomy of jellyfish, but you'll see what I mean. I've been waiting to do this for some while because doing the graphite on top of the black just really made the entire thing pop. You know, when I was doing like the little experiments. So I've gone the camera hand and die, and I've gone as soon as I finished charging, and the next day the one from really beautiful, overcast and dreary. So I've got my ring lights on, which is why we've got a glow over here, which I'm not too happy about. But anyway, this is the final piece. Now, I actually really do love the way how this came out, even though I was really apprehensive about using the really weird menagerie of supplies that I got. You know, I'm glad then to focus all of the colours on the jellyfish and went in with a black background to really push that forward. And having done that, I think it worked out extremely well. So there's some plasma themselves, you know, I can send I was really surprised and how it actually worked out. First of the colouring pencils, I actually really did enjoy using them, despite the fact I've never used the Bronzeal make before. You know, extremely limited in the colours with 2 purples and 2 blues, but honestly, they worked really well. You know, and acted like normal pencils, went down nicely. On smoother paper, I'm assuming they're going to work a lot differently. But did manage to get like the gradients and that I needed. So yeah, I think it's actually worth it, you know, just to try something a bit new. The Caran-d'Ache watercolour pencil I did enjoy using. As I've mentioned many times before, it did give off that graininess and didn't exactly dissolve as much as I wanted it to. This was actually really nice to use, and it does work like normal watercolours where you can water them down to get different variations, and this actually did work really well for like the background parts, like on the main body and the tendrils. Okay, so just a little quick bit of research, and I've just found out that these bits have been called tendrils, and I think the more technical terms for them are oral arms. At least that's what Google says. So yeah, I mean, you can learn something new every day, but regardless, I did love using the pencil for like a nice background wash, and the pencils worked really well on top of it, and again came out with a really nice result. The paintbrushes I really did enjoy using. I didn't exactly use this, what is it, a filbert brush, but I really did enjoy using the round one, even though then the bristles are a little bit too long for my liking. But you've heard me mention a lot, you know, they did hold an awful lot of water, which is what you need with a watercolour brush. So I do highly recommend, you know, getting one like this. Again, this one is a Princeton Velvet Touch Long Round, size 8. So you don't really need the size 8, but again, it's down to personal preference. But I really did love using this. This one would be really good to do like a larger area. I think the graphite brush liner, as you've seen me do, all I did was do the background. It had amazing coverage, and once it went down it didn't pick up. I mean, it only took like literally seconds to dry, which was fantastic. Not only that, but it did not bleed through on this paper whatsoever, so I really did love that. And the one thing that I did love using was the Rembrandt graphite watercolour. Even though then it didn't actually reacting like normal graphite. You know, I have waited for it to dry and to have trying to erase it and just did not erase whatsoever. I rubbed at it and nothing came up, and so it's got like the look of graphite rather than acting like graphite, if you know what I mean. So when someone's saying it's silver paint, but I really did love using this, and as you can see on here where I've done the stingers, some extra highlights, where I've done highlights on the oral arms, it came up absolutely beautifully as though I went over it with a silver marker. And I also didn't like a couple of bubbles because, you know, it isn't a sea creature. But honestly, I really would recommend that you try that out. And for the paper itself, I have to admit it took quite a beating, especially with the amount of ink that was on it, and it held up amazingly. I mean, apart from that corner, it hasn't really buckled much like some of the other papers that I've got. Ooh, you can see that shininess of the graphite, and you've also got to take my word for it as well, and it's a lot more nicer in real life. It's just that the light in my room at the moment is really bad. So yeah, I would actually recommend this paper as well, even if it's just to give it a try, and that's the Grumbacher. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video as much as I enjoyed making this art. So if you guys are interested in your own art snacks box, I will leave a link in the description box below. So in that sense, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.